It wasn't showing?
Nope, it was just your, like, I guess whatever was on the screen. I could see the Canva presentation and
Okay, let me try it again. Here we go. Can you see it now?
mhm,
Is it on the screen?
it is. I can
Okay.
see.
Join Sheka and Tammy on the collaborative. Let's go!
The collaborative.
1, 2, 1, 2.
The collaborative.
What's that time?
On Facebook Tuesday at 7.
The collaborative. Who we have? Come on.
We have our leaders. We have our teachers and our parents. We have our authors. Story time at the end. Solving problems in our education system. Phenomenal women.
Join them on Facebook.
On Facebook Tuesday at 7. The collaborative.
It's that time. You're with Sheka and Tammy.
The collaborative.
Phenomenal ladies. It's educational. Here on the Facebook. The collaborative.
The collaborative.
Hi, Tammy. Good evening, everyone.
Hey, Sheka. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this month's edition of our live, The Collaborative. We are so thankful to have everybody and are super excited about our guest this evening. So thank you, everyone, for joining. And just a reminder, our new format for The Collaborative is each first Tuesday, Sheka and I are live with you with a guest and sometimes an author. We're fortunate tonight to have one And the same with our featured guest, who is also a children's book author. So please join us. And each of the other Tuesdays each month will continue to be devoted to our story time. So we are, again, very, very thankful to have everybody joining us. And for all of you who are joining us or who will be watching this, I ask that you guys keep our family in prayer. We lost the patriarch of our family, and so it's a difficult time, but we wanted to continue with what we know he would want us to do, and that is go on with making sure that we are providing you guys with this message that together we can be better. So we again are very thankful for everybody that's joining us or who is going to watch. Thanks.
Thank you, Tammy. And we definitely are keeping you all in prayer, and condolences definitely for you all's loss. I know that is difficult, and this time is difficult. So you just being here, we appreciate you.
Thank you.
So this evening, we thank you all for joining us, and I apologize that Facebook has changed how you can share within a group now. So it takes me longer to do it. So I apologize if it's not to every group yet. I'll have to do it afterwards. But thank you all for joining us, educators, parents, community members, and authors. If you all would just like and share the feed on your pages, don't keep the information to yourself. We have a phenomenal guest with us this evening.
Absolutely. So excited to talk with her.
Yes. And we are problem solver educators, but we cannot solve problems on our own. We like to come together once a month around real topics with our collaborators. That's you all that are joining us each month and each week for our Storytime segment. So thank you for being here. And as you know, we are an educational show, so we like to start off with this day in history. And let me make sure I can get this pulled back up. But on this day in history, let me pull it up first because I would like to show the graphic. Here we go. Mr. Dory Miller, if you're familiar with him. Here we go. Oh, I didn't know it was going to show that music. I just won't play it. But on this day in history, on December the 7th, 68 years ago today, Dory Miller was stationed at Pearl Harbor on the battleship USS West Virginia. As an African-American serving his nation in 1941, that meant serving in a segregated Navy. That morning, as the Japanese unleashed their attack, Dory Miller would step in as our American story into the American story by becoming one of the first American heroes of World War II. When the alarm sounded, he rushed from the to the deck. Amidst chaos, began carrying wounded men to safety. And he was also found several mortally wounded people, and the ship was heavily under attack. But under intense enemy fire, he manned a machine gun and began firing on Japanese planes. His unselfish heroics were praised by his superiors when they petitioned the War Department to award Miller with the Navy's highest honors, the Navy Cross, which was awarded on May 27th, 1942 at Pearl Harbor. So we just wanted to make sure that we started with that fact and spread that awareness that some people may not have been familiar with.
Absolutely. And for all you history buffs, I'm sure that was very interesting to hear. I was really tickled when Sheka shared that information about Doris Miller, who I hadn't ever heard of as a hero at Pearl Harbor. So, interesting. Thanks, Sheka, for sharing. We
Yeah, I
are
was glad
going
I found it.
to,
I was glad I found it.
yeah, I'm glad you found that. We're going to bring up our guest tonight. We are so excited, as we said before, to have none other than DeeDee Cummings with us this evening. And I'm going to share a little about DeeDee by way of her biography so that you guys can know how phenomenal our guest this evening absolutely is. DeeDee Cummings believes literacy is a fundamental human right. She is the founder of Makeaway Media, It Pays to Read, and the Louisville Book Festival, as well as an attorney, therapist, and CEO of Abbey Behavioral Health in Louisville, Kentucky. Abbey is an intensive therapy agency that works to prevent the placement of children in out of home care, such as foster care, hospitalization, and incarceration. DeeDee attended Bennett College in Greensboro, North Carolina, one of only two all female, historically Black colleges in the country. Wow. After graduating from Bennett, she earned a master's degree and a law degree from the University of Louisville. All of her writing focuses on sharing inspiring messages that remind us all it is never too late to begin again. DeeDee encourages the children she works with to write as a way to process emotions, document their journey, and express themselves more clearly. In addition to presenting on multiple topics around the country, DeeDee donates hundreds of books and volunteer hours every year to families, children, churches, and her local school system. After many months of a worldwide pandemic and widespread social injustice, DeeDee Cummings is proud to release a new series that is not only filled with hope, but one that is also for all children. The five-book Kayla, a modern day princess series, focuses on compassion for one another and the importance of developing and following your dreams. DeeDee believes that young readers who see themselves in a book and see what is possible will develop stronger self esteem, increased empathy, and an excitement about their future. She and her husband, Anthony, live in Louisville with their three children: Kayla, an actress in New York, Anthony, a college student and athlete, and Nick, an elementary school student. So we are so excited to have you, DeeDee. Thank you and welcome to the collaborative.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you both for having me. And ooh, that was a long bio.
It was so important, though. We really wanted to share because we want people to hear how amazing you are. Number one, we're very, very intrigued with the work that you're doing. And when we were learning about Abbey Behavioral Health, I thought it was so ironic because my little niece's name is Abigail, and we spell her Abby, ABI.
Yeah.
I thought that was really so cute. And I can't wait to get the Kayla books so that we can make sure that she has access to that.
Yes, thank you so much for saying that. And I really appreciate you both for having me on. I looked at a lot of the information that you have on Facebook about your show, and I'm really blown away by some of the guests you've had and what you're doing with this program, which is very important.
Well, thank you again. And you talked about how long the bio was, but we definitely had to share all of the phenomenal things that you're doing and the work that you do. And we love of the fact that a great deal of your work centers around literacy. So we actually
Yes.
have that in common. Tell us about the Make-A-Way Foundation Media and
Mhm.
It Pays to Read and the Louisville Book Festival.
Um, I became a lawyer after I graduated from school, but I didn't like the practice of fighting. Lawyers
Mm-hmm.
almost have to fight, and it's exceptionally draining to live your life that way. And even when I was in law school and I'd meet lawyers and they'd find out I was in law school, they would tell me to turn back.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Roz. Thank you for joining us.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But so I became a therapist after I became a lawyer because the principles are really, a lot of the same thing. I still deal with family court. I
Mm-hmm.
still deal with family lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
And I love to help people solve problems, except I'm on the side where I get to mend the problems more than kind of blow things up, which is a necessary thing sometimes. But I just didn't want to participate in family situations from that angle.
Mm-hmm.
And so after I became a therapist, I started writing books with children as a way to get them to open up about what they've been through and document their journey and kind of take control back over this, their story, because I worked primarily with kids in therapeutic foster care. So by the time they got me as a therapist, they were done talking about anything. They had told their story to a doctor, a teacher, a judge, their parent. They had told their story to so many people and they just didn't want to talk about it anymore. So therapy was like the worst thing, that, a child just didn't want to sit and talk that long. So after I started writing stories with kids, which I found really worked, I started writing my own stories because I saw how healing it was and how therapeutic it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I also began to notice that when I read books with kids, if I showed books to kids, that they were much more talkative, they responded much more easily, and they were much more engaged if the characters in the book looked like them, or if there were things in the story that they could relate to. A lot of the books that our children are reading in school are classics, and I have nothing against classics. I understand why they're classic, but it's time to mix it up a little bit. There's room for more stories than just these classic stories like the Canterbury Tales, which I read when I was in high school. And it's hard for some children who are facing all of the things that our children face nowadays to relate to those stories. So I founded this a long way of saying I founded Make-A-Way Media to publish more books with diverse characters. And then I started a nonprofit called It Pays to Read because I was giving away so many books to people. It just made sense to open a nonprofit arm of Make-A-Way Media because we were giving away so many books. And we literally pay at-risk youth to read books, and as they're reading books, they process a lot of the trauma and things like that they've been through. One of the first books we read was The Hate You Give, and a child who had never told a story before about this horrible domestic violence that had happened in their home. They opened up and shared that story with our group after we read and processed that book. So that's just an example of the power that a diverse book can have when a child can relate to the stories they're reading.
Absolutely.
Definitely. And I'm glad you brought that up because that's a lot of what you're talking about is the work that we recognized as school leaders when we were trying to impact the literacy and reading achievement at our schools, when we started to bring in more of those diverse selections that children could relate to, their interest in reading change, which if your interest has improved, you're going to read more. So we discovered we didn't know about independent authors at that point. As school leaders, we just ordered from the catalogs that they sent to the school. So we wanted to be more intentional about what we were doing as leaders and making sure that we were spreading the word. So that's basically how everything that got started that we're working on. And when you mentioned how the children become more comfortable, we developed a program That's an SEL program that combines literacy, where it's helping teachers learn how to build relationships with students around books.
Mm,
Because sometimes it's difficult to just open up with a conversation, but when you're talking around a story, it makes everyone more comfortable, and
right.
everybody can possibly relate to the story. You don't necessarily have to be talking about yourself. You could be talking about a character. It really, allows that opportunity to build community within the classroom,
Hmm.
as well as allow the children to form those relationships with their teachers that are needed for them to become ready to learn.
Right. Right.
Absolutely. And it all goes back to that whole sense of belonging, because we really want to foster that in the children. And when we are able to expose them to characters who look like them,
Yeah.
who sound like them, who live like them, they feel more like they belong in that space as
Yes.
well. So we definitely applaud the work that you're doing.
Yes.
And I'm so glad that you shared about your journey as an attorney, because it was just so interesting. She and I were just thinking, wow, I mean, she really is doing a lot of stuff. But
Yes.
it's really great to hear. And I'm sure that that background in your counseling as a legal counselor
Hmm.
is awesome for you as a therapist who works still within that same family court system, because they need people who know how
Hmm.
to support those children.
Yes.
They really, really need you. So
Yeah.
again, we applaud you with the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Just so that we can remind the audience, though, because we want everybody that's listening to just be reminded of what your Abbey Behavioral Health really specializes in, and that's preventing um, placement of children in out-of-home care, such as foster care, hospitalization, and incarceration.
Yes.
Tell us about this, because I'm just going to be completely honest with you. As school leaders, we know exactly what this entails. And
Hmm.
when a child is removed from the home for a 45-day evaluation, but a lot of people aren't familiar with that process or what happens in a home when a child is removed. So, talk to us about maybe how your agency helps with what is going on with the children and why this is so important.
It's exceptionally important. I can't even stress to you how important it is, because uh, my agency specializes in keeping children in the home. And that doesn't mean that, if a child shouldn't be in a home, we don't advocate for that child
Absolutely.
to come out of that home and go to a
And we
relative
do
place.
as well.
Yes,
Absolutely.
right. But we all know, right, that sometimes it's too
Work.
easy to take a child out of the home, and it can sometimes be a knee-jerk reaction. And honestly, a lot of those decisions a lot of times are made on cultural foundations.
Mhm.
Someone perceives that a family is not able to care for a child when really they're struggling to find the resources that are so readily available in another area of town. In some areas of town here, I'm in Louisville, Kentucky, and Louisville, Kentucky is still a very segregated city. Anybody will tell you that. We're the home of Breonna Taylor. Um, and we have a lot of issues in our city with community resources, even with bookstores. That's how I really got into trying to spread this love of books across our whole community, because Louisville is shaped like this, and there's a highway right down the middle, and this is called the East End, and this is called the West End, and all the bookstores are on the East End. So are all the resources. Guess where all the Black people live?
On the West End.
On the West End, right?
Mhm.
So, it's really easy to walk into a home and say that a family doesn't care for their children because they can't adequately provide for them, when really, if you just, you can't just lead the horse to the water. You have to help them, you know, plan the meal. And when we see that resources are put in place and a family is surrounded with support, the children actually excel in the family. And it is exceptionally damaging to take the route of removing a child from a home when resources will fix the problem.
Right.
And
Mhm.
so that's why we specialize in trying to keep children in a home, because once they go into foster care or once they enter a hospitalization type placement, they start this track record. They start this record of first they go into foster care, then they go into hospital, then they come back out and go to foster care. Then next thing you know, they're being incarcerated as a youth.
Mhm.
And it starts that pipeline where kids feel like that's the direction that they're headed, and then they're meeting all these people in the system. One of the reasons I started writing stories with children is because they're meeting all of these people in the system who tell them, you're no good, you're just like your mother, you're just like your father, and you're going to be just like them. And
Right.
so that again brings me back to why we write stories, because children get to say who they are. They document their journey, they say who they are. But that's what happens once they start interacting with people from the system who are, not always, but oftentimes burned out. These are the things that children often hear from people in the system. So it's a whole lot easier. It sounds like more work, but it's a whole lot easier to keep them out of the system in the first place.
Right. And it's very it honestly therapeutic
Mm-hmm.
to be able to provide the family with that
Yes.
structure of support that's needed. And I
Yes.
want to just go on the record as saying we definitely don't want children in homes where they're not safe or they're being abused or there's anything there
Mm-hmm.
that is of danger to children. And we believe in the foster care system when it works.
Yes.
My aunt was a foster parent and
Yes.
loved and adopted
Mm-hmm.
4 children. So I believe that that is a workable system and I applaud them.
Mm-hmm.
But it is also something that we have to be very mindful of in what you just described as when a child gets into a situation that isn't um, better than what they were removed from,
Yes.
or more toxic, more dangerous, and
Mhm.
it creates that whole new child
Yeah.
that ends up in that cyclical
Yeah.
spiral of going in and
Mm-hmm.
out, not just of foster homes, but of hospitals,
Yeah.
of the juvenile justice system, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important work, and we salute you for doing that.
Yes. One other thing I wanted to say real quick about that is a lot of times maltreatment of children is generational, because it's, what we learn from our parents. Sometimes, and I'm not talking about breaking a bone, okay? But sometimes we don't know all of the damage that we do to our children. And so when you put resources in place in a home and the family doesn't feel threatened by you, they know that you really are there to help. So they're
Mhm.
open and we can work in the home with the family on all of the trauma that the parents even experienced as children. Then you break that generational trauma instead of just removing that child from the home, and then that generational trauma just continues.
Right. And it's traumatizing. Like I would love, and I know we don't have time and space
Yeah.
here, but it is so much that could be, become of the conversation that we're having because, and I don't know if you're noticing this where you are, but it's very evident that the pandemic has had a tremendous impact on families. And you see sometimes now parents who are just so disengaged and the children are kind of just
Mm-hmm.
fending for themselves. And it just feels like the support that they need is a fingertip away
Yeah.
if they can find an Abby's behavioral.
Yes. Yes. You're right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And I totally agree. We've seen that with the pandemic, that the divide between the haves and the have-nots is wider than ever.
Mhm. And just as Tammy stated earlier, we commend you because we actually work with another former prosecutor who is also an author, and her book is called Delinquent, Daphne um, Robinson. She was just like you, disheartened by
Mhm.
the systematic things that were taking place that were not helping children. So right now she's working with schools and educators about, sometimes looking at some alternatives to just placing a child, in a facility or for incarceration for those 45-day evaluation periods, maybe look at some alternatives. So for you to have spent so much time, because we know that going to law school was not something that was just, like putting on some socks.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
It was a lot. And for you to recognize that your work would be so much valuable on the side that you are on now, and that you had that courage to take that leap of faith to really be impactful to help children says a lot about you and your character and you and what you're doing. This is the type of thing that we need for children. We really need people who actually care about children, because some people get caught up, in titles, and they get caught up in, achievements, and, those things are nice. But if you're really if you really don't have a true heart for children, for our profession and the things that your services offer that are able to help children, if you're not really here to help, you shouldn't be here.
That's
So
right.
we commend you. We appreciate you. We want to help spread the word about what you're doing, because as educators and leaders, we've seen exactly what you're talking about, the trauma, how it impacts children, and exactly what you said, that it's generational. And we have another broadcast that we do on Saturdays that we do with leaders. And we were just talking about the ACEs study Saturday, and how that has been proven to show that that trauma impacts people's health, physical health.
Yes.
And when children don't know, and that trauma is their normalcy, they don't recognize that this shouldn't be happening, because they have processed that this is normal, because that's been their life. So, just having advocates out there for children, we love that, because there's so many children that need someone's voice. They need someone to speak up for them. They need someone to advocate for them. And it's always disheartening to me when you look at these children who have gone through these traumatic experiences, and then when you see the amount of time assigned to the person that caused the trauma, which sometimes is nothing, or they may just be even given back to the people who caused the trauma. That is what's really disheartening. So there's still so much work to be done, but we love what you're doing. And if there's anything that we can do to help spread the message, if this is something a service that schools could possibly use, instead of us having those 45-day evaluation periods where we, go through certain agencies that will incarcerate a student, let us know, because we have a catalog that we send to schools and, get awareness about resources, because a lot of times we don't use the resources because we're not aware of them.
Right.
We don't know what they are. And that's the thing that I love about what the work that you're doing, because as Sheka said, the thing that I have discovered about parents as a principal is most parents want what's best for their children. Some of them don't know how to advocate. So you can teach them how to be that advocate by figuring out what it is you need to do to make this the home that this child deserves to live in. Yeah.
Thank you all for saying that.
Oh,
we are very, very impressed with the work that you're doing, and just so excited and absolutely elated to see that you are the super platinum sponsor for Multicultural Children's Book Day. We actually are bronze sponsors and fully support the work that the organization is doing. Mia Wingen,
Mm-hmm.
one of the founders, was actually our guest last month. So before we change the direction of the program, tell us a little bit about your children's book and how that journey began for you and what you hope people can gain from reading your reading series.
Well, I have to give a shout out to Multicultural Book Day, because I just started writing books on my own. I haven't tried to go through a publishing company, but that's why I said I was so impressed with what you all did, because a lot of times most school systems across the whole country are just ordering books from a catalog. And so for you all to step out and advocate for indie authors, which is where there is like a wealth of cultural stories coming.
Absolutely amazing work.
Because the publishing company, the publishing world has been largely shut to stories that didn't fit like this majority mold, because people told authors for decades that there was no audience for their story, which is crazy to me. And now you see diverse books as like a hot topic. You know, you see people of all races talking about diverse books, which is so important, because sometimes I'll go to like these book fairs and stuff, and someone will actually make the comment to me, I think that that's so wonderful that you're writing for your people. Literally, people say that to me. And I'll say, you know, I don't write these stories for my kid. I do write these stories for my kids because I want my kids to be able to see characters that look like them in books, because I didn't have that growing up. But I really write these stories for all kids, because all kids need to see Black and brown children in leadership roles. They need to see that Black and brown children can be heroes, can save the day, can be problem solvers, can be counted on to have their back and to stand up for them and to make the right choice. So when your leading protagonist in every book is always a white character, which there's nothing wrong with having white characters in books, but you also have to mix that up with Black and brown characters, because it looks to little kids whose minds are being formed, it looks like only white children can solve problems. And we could go on and on about this, but I just, everybody knows the one classic study that was done where little Black girls and white girls were put in a room full of dolls and asked to choose which doll they wanted. And all the Black girls and the white girls all chose the white dolls, because those dolls were considered more preferable. That's the exact same thing that happens with books. I can tell you want to say something, Dr. Houston.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that, you know, you're right. It is not wrong, of course, to depict white characters. But what is very wrong is for white characters to be depicted 50% of the time, animals to be depicted 27% of the time, and African Americans only depicted 10% of the time.
Absolutely.
So that's the travesty that we have to correct. And we hope that by making sure parents, educators, our whole platform is geared to both all community members, authors, to spread the word about the work that you all are doing as independent authors, because it's important, and it's important to get those books into the hands of all children. Like you said, not just African American children, all children need to see those books and the characters presented.
That's right. And, you know, we all grew up reading books with white characters. I mean, it doesn't, you know, there's no harm, obviously, in reading a book with someone who's a leader in a book that doesn't look like you. In fact, it reflects. I just have to shout out real quick. This person who's commenting right now, Charlene Mosley, is my number one fan and cheerleader. She follows me everywhere I go. Thank you, Charlene.
Thank you for joining.
She is the illustrator.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she's the illustrator of my book. So I have to show you these books really quickly, because I'm blown away by the work that Charlene has done in these books. So I just had to give her a shout out.
Awesome,
I just had to give her a shout out while she was on there. But this is just, her work is just absolutely amazing. So this is book 1, which I think we might go over tonight. This is book 2, called Dishes, Dancing, and Dreams.
Oh, wow.
This is book 3, called Toughest Tool. This is book 4, which I think this might be my favorite cover. It's just so cute with the butterflies coming off of the skirt.
Oh, that is cute.
Book 4, called These Shoes Are Made for Dancing. And then this is the final book in the series, A Little Magic. I think
Oh,
this is Charlene's favorite cover. But you can see through these books that the young lady in the story is growing up throughout the series. So what this series is based on, it's called Kayla, a Modern Day Princess. And what it's based on, thank you, Denise, for saying it's your fave. I appreciate that. It's based on my family and my daughter, Kayla, who is a Broadway actress.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
we
phenomenal.
love the theater.
Yes. My
Yes,
favorite.
yes. And so this is my family. This is my husband and my beautiful little boys. Look, my whole family's on tonight. I mean, oh, my husband, that's my husband. He says my favorite is these shoes.
Oh,
So much for
gotcha.
joining and for
Yes, thank you
supporting.
for
Yeah,
being
that's
here.
nice. I have a little bit of an entourage, but it's just all my family. So anyway,
That's
No,
awesome.
there's no better support than your family.
I know that's right. But I'll tell you where the idea for this came from was my daughter, you know, true story. She is a brown girl in a tough world. She dealt with all kinds of things growing up, but she's taken dance since she could walk. And she's dealt with things I didn't even know about until I wrote this book, that a teacher hit her with a ruler. A ballet teacher hit her with a ruler because she couldn't tuck her butt in, her God-given butt. So again, that's the kind of thing that happens when you read and you write and you have these conversations. I didn't even know. So there's a scene like that in this book, more mild, but similar to that in this book. And I didn't even know it until I started this writing process. But
Wow.
what it's really about is a story about any little brown girl who I want to know is special. Our Black and brown girls have not been raised to see their beauty. And now you see like Miss America and Miss USA and Miss Teen USA, you know, you see these beautiful Black women who are also talented and smart, winning these titles. You see the first Black president ever. You're beginning to just now in 2021 see the first this, the first that. There's still so many firsts for us to achieve as Black and brown people in this country. And I believe that books like this help children see what they can do, and it gives them hope and it gives them courage. Another thing I want to say just real quick, I know I talk a lot, is through all of these books, I have woven in the actual therapeutic techniques that I use with children in therapy. So like in this book alone, there are over 70 coping skills in this book that, and it doesn't say, hey, these are coping skills. It's woven into how the children respond, so that if a child is having a bad day, they'll reflect, they'll think back to this book and they'll say, you know, when Kayla was having a bad day, she just went and sat on her porch and drank a tall glass of water and thought about her problem. So that's how they're woven into the story. But also in the back of this book, there's instructions for how to make a memory box. So that when you have a bad day, you can go into that box and pull out good memories, because a lot of times, you know, you see the suicide rate among our children, Black and brown children, going up. And a lot of times it's because they're not anchored with a lot of hope and a lot of empowerment. And books do that for children. So one of my favorite expressions I always say is reading books with a character who doesn't look like you builds your empathy. But reading books with a character who does look like you builds your esteem. And our children really need that right now.
They do. And one of the things that I noticed as a school leader, a lot of times when I would talk to, especially my girls, I would ask them, you know, when I would be telling them you're beautiful, and they would drop their heads, and I would say, you know, well, what do you think about yourself? You don't think you're beautiful? No, ma'am. And I was just baffled by that. But you're right. Many of them don't have high self-esteem. They're not being affirmed. So your books would definitely be helpful. And we would like to invite you to be a part of our SEL program, where we recommend certain books that fit the criteria for our social and emotional literacy program, because that the books that you have with those coping strategies interwoven
Mhm.
are a perfect fit.
Thank you. Thank
Can't
you.
wait to hear.
Yes, and I have 2 daughters, so Tammy's gonna get them for her niece. I'm gonna get them for my 2 daughters. So
Thank you.
yes, definitely.
The
We are.
first
Go
book
ahead.
is the thinnest book, and it doesn't have as much coping skills in it
Mhm.
because my hope is that children will grow up with the series also,
Mhm.
just like Kayla grows up in the series. But the best thing about book one is it's the perfect bedtime story, because I
Mhm.
actually have a girlfriend I graduated from high school with who has a granddaughter now, and she wanted to read a book to her granddaughter before bedtime, and her granddaughter said, no, the stories you read give me nightmares. And I hadn't really thought about that like we read these stories to our kids before bedtime, like Jack and the Beanstalk, and
Mhm.
we read like these horrible tales to our children before they go to bed. And
Right.
this is a beautiful bedtime story. Just I can just show you like one of the images.
So
It
beautiful.
is.
That's
It is.
Charlene. That's the work of Charlene.
Awesome work, Charlene.
She is
Does.
a master illustrator. She just
Wow.
takes whatever dreams I have and she just sees them so clear. We work so well together, and she has a big artist exhibit coming up next year, and she's been a little too busy for me, and I've been like crying, like, don't leave me,
Well,
she's amazing.
congratulations to
Yes,
Charlene.
And
congratulations.
she is a Black illustrator, and it is a very, very rare combination. And there's lots of children's books with white authors and white illustrators. It's a very rare combination to have a Black author and a Black illustrator.
Wow. Well, we
Yeah.
commend you both. Your work is phenomenal. So
Thank you.
it is that time. It is story time. So one of the biggest misconceptions as an adult, my favorite types of books are children's books.
Me too.
A lot of times, and I work in the secondary arena, one of the biggest misconceptions is that children become too old for children's books, and that's not true. That's why Tammy and I developed our SEL literacy program, and it is a K through 12 program, because adults, anyone can gain something or garner something from a children's book that has a great story. Like you
Yeah.
said, it's a conversation starter, and you can really make sure that you're building relationships with your students
Yeah.
through those short stories that will allow you to talk around what is happening. So parents, those of you that are tuned in, go get your little ones, your big ones. Like we stated, story time is for everyone. We all enjoy a great story. So I am going to pull up the book here and turn it over for story time. Let me get it shared on the screen. And I'm not sure if I have to stay in to be able to turn the pages for you. So let me see how this goes. All right, there we go.
And I'll back out of here.
Okay. All right. Should I start here?
Yes.
Okay.
Kayla is a gift. She is just like you. She is happy and she has hopes and dreams. Every day, her mom wakes her up and says, "What's your plan today?" Every day, you have to have a plan. A plan gives you hope. Hope gives you dreams. So, what's your plan today? Most of the time, Kayla only sees her mother in the mornings. Her mom works very late, and by the time she gets home, it is usually way past Kayla's bedtime. Tonight, however, she is waiting up for her mom because Daddy said it was okay. Her mom called home earlier in the day and said that she had big news to share. Even though it was nowhere near her birthday, Kayla hoped it had something to do with her getting a present. Just as she was dreaming of all the toys she wanted, Kayla heard the garage door open. She ran to the window and screamed, "Hello, Mr. Moon. My mama is home." Kayla wanted to race downstairs. She could not help but kick her feet up and down in excitement. She walked to her doorway and pressed her ear close to the door. She could hear her mom climbing the stairs. Like a lightning bolt, she went from the door back to her bed in a second. Kayla's mom beamed with pride as she opened the door. Her mom gave her a big hug and said, "How is my sweet little princess in her tower?" Kayla said, "I'm good, Mama. Do you have a present for me?" "No, I did not say I had a present. I said I had big news." "What's the big news?" Kayla wondered out loud. "I got a promotion." "Mom, that's wonderful. It's what you've worked so hard for." "Yes, I have. We all have, really. And I got a present for you." "Yes, yes, yes, I knew it." Kayla clapped her hands in excitement. From her work bag, Kayla's mom pulled out a sparkly tiara fit for a princess. "What's this for, Mom?" "This is for you. I want you to wear it proudly and always believe and know how special you are. People will be mean sometimes, and they will try to tell you differently. Don't you pay them any mind. Do you hear me? I want you to always be treated special, like royalty, because that is what you are." She then placed the little crown on top of Kayla's head. It fit perfectly. Now I have a secret to share with you. Kayla's eyes opened wide with anticipation. "The best promotion I ever received was the day I became your mom." Mom and daughter looked at each other. In Kayla's eyes, her mom saw all of the hopes and dreams she ever had, a journey that in this moment made all the hard work worth it. In her mom's eyes, Kayla saw her hopes and dreams for her future, a role model to follow. No matter how big or scary her dreams may be, Kayla would find a way. She would make a way. Kayla went to sleep with her little tiara on her head and her favorite doll in her arms. She dreamed of her future, her wishes, and her hopes. She thought, "This world is a beautiful and magical place." That night, Kayla dreamed of what her life could be. She promised herself she would see as much of the world as she possibly could. She knew she had to have a plan. The world would be her stage. She was happy as she slept because she was hopeful. Sweet dreams, little one. Sweet dreams. So
That was amazing.
Thank you. There's so much I could go on and on about this book. You know, the two-parent home, we don't often see the mom working hard and struggling a little bit with the guilt of working hard, but them taking the time to, thank you, Jill. I appreciate you saying you love it. Them taking the time to take these moments and make those moments special. And then throughout the books, Kayla's mom gives her all of these gifts that are like gifts that kind of are gifts that someone who is royalty would get. And then as Kayla grows up and achieves her dreams, all those things come back and play an important part in who she actually becomes. So I always tell people, I always feel so silly saying I love these books because I wrote them, but I really love these books.
Amazing story, and we are so thankful that you joined us tonight.
Thank
DeeDee.
you.
Wonderful.
Thank you. I also have a Christmas book called In the Nick of Time.
I saw that, and I was going to
yeah.
invite you to be a part of our 12 Days of Christmas.
Oh, I would love that.
When we
I would
finish,
love that.
so that would be awesome.
That book got a lot of reviews. It was in USA Today and Essence Magazine and Kirkus Magazine because there are not a lot of holiday books where Black girls need to be represented too. But for some reason, there are more books with Black girls than there are with Black boys. And so I think that's another reason why that book got some attention, because a Black boy got to be the hero and help Santa save the day. So that's another book called In the Nick of Time. I hope you all will check out.
Yes, we look forward to hearing that. So we'll give you some more details on the 12 Days of Christmas.
Okay, great.
We really appreciate it. And thank you again for joining us, DeeDee. And thank you all
Thank
for
you.
being with us this evening. We appreciate you. And
Thank
do
you, everybody.
please remember to keep our family in your thoughts and prayers.
Yes,
Yes.
definitely.
And I'm going to put you backstage while we close out the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hang there for a moment. And just to shout out some people that I saw, Miss Strong, we appreciate you tuning in. Also, Erica, thank you all for joining us, and everyone who is on with us. We don't take it lightly that you could have been doing something else, but you decided to spend this time with us. So we appreciate you. We thank you for joining us. If you would visit our website, www.createandeducate.solutions, a lot of the things that we talked about this evening are on our website. You can follow us on all platforms. Those of you that may have already purchased our book that is coming out this month about our leadership journey, it doesn't have to be lonely at the top. Thank you for that support. And our leadership journey, we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And what it's been like to lead during the pandemic. So our work centers around maintaining and building resilient organizations. We work with schools and businesses. Also contact us about our SEL training that is really needed right now in schools and really organizations for what so many people are experiencing. But as we talked about our SEL literacy program, it combines SEL literacy and also teaching teachers how to build relationships with students. So as Tammy mentioned at the start of the broadcast, our format has changed somewhat. We come on with the collaborative show the first Tuesday actually of each month. The following Tuesdays are always our story time segments with featured authors. So next Tuesday we will have a featured author that will be on for story time, and we will be bringing you another collaborative show on the first Tuesday in January. As we mentioned, the 12 days of Christmas will be coming up. We will provide some information about that on our page. And we also will probably partner with some of our community partners for the 12 days of Christmas, but we will be bringing you some phenomenal authors and some great holiday stories around the holiday season. This Saturday, our normal broadcast, our Saturday PD with Dr. Sheka and Principal Tammy, we are going to pre-record it because Tammy and I will be in Dallas, Texas on Saturday. We have 2 back-to-back sessions for the National Conference for AVID, NatCon. So we are very excited about that, but we don't want to not provide you with that PD that we normally do on Saturdays at 10:30. So we will have it pre-recorded in a show. We won't be able to put up the comments, of course, because we won't be live, but we still would like for you to tune in and hear that segment. We will be providing you with great information, and we just hope that we're able to pay it forward just like people have helped us. We want to provide that same support and help to all of the phenomenal leaders and colleagues that we have out there.
Absolutely. And thanks to Principal Kayla for making sure that we knew that that was an option for us.
Definitely. And for all of his support. So thank you all so much again for joining us. We were very honored to have DeeDee on with us. So we are going to end the show. Have a great evening, everyone. Thank you.
Join Sheka and Tammy on the collaborative. Let's go!
The collaborative.
1, 2, 1, 2.
The collaborative.
What's that time?
On Facebook Tuesday at 7. The